What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Yo, if you're hopping in on the live stream, say what's up. Let me know where you're coming in from. Let me know where you're coming in from. Thank you so much for rocking with me, guys. This most recent video comes out of CNN. This reporter from CNN met up with JD Vance at the border and was trying to bait him into answering particular questions. And I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. So as we're watching this, drop your comments down below. Let me share screen. What's up? What's up? Thank you. I'm streaming this on a couple different platforms. All right. So we're going to jump into this here. And let's check this out here. Let's do this. Boom. There we go. That's a better view. Here we go. CNN reporter meets JD Vance at the border. Let's listen.
The border today. You just got done touring the border. Vice President Harris has contended that.
Can you guys hear it? I'm going to rewind it.
Senator Vance, we're at the border today. You just got done touring the border. Vice President Harris has contended that you and President Trump, former President Trump, had tanked the bipartisan border deal that would have provided a lot more funding to support the border. What is your response to that?
Well, look,
these reporters, man, these reporters come in with accusatory questions, very aggressive. I get it. I get it. All the reporters are trying to get the clickbait. All the reporters are trying to get the reaction. Let's watch it.
Senator Vance, we're at the border today. You just got done touring the border. Vice President Harris has contended that you and President Trump, former President Trump, had tanked the bipartisan border deal that would have provided a lot more funding to support the border. What is your response to that?
Well, look, the bipartisan border deal was actually a massive giveaway to illegal immigrants. It would not have solved any of the problems that Kamala Harris has caused. I mean, they came into the administration, they promised from day one that they would suspend deportations, that they would reinstate catch and release, that they would end remain in Mexico. They implemented these policies, and it had the intended effect of opening up the southern border. What happened is that Kamala Harris, who was the border czar, decided that this was not good politically, and so they tried to implement some new law that actually wouldn't have solved the underlying problem. They have the tools necessary. They just need to empower Border Patrol to tell people who want to come in illegally, you're not allowed to do that. They just need to use the authority that the border czar Kamala Harris has.
Cooking. He's cooking, man. I got to listen to that again real quick.
Remain in Mexico. They emphasis cause. I mean, they can't illegal immigrants. It would
to support the border. What is your response to that?
Well, look, the bipartisan border deal was actually a massive giveaway to illegal immigrants. It would not have solved any of the problems that Kamala Harris has caused. I mean, they came into the administration, they promised from day one that they would suspend deportations, that they would reinstate catch and release, that they would end remain in Mexico. They implemented these policies, and it had the intended effect of opening up the southern border. What happened is that Kamala Harris, who was the border czar, decided that this was not good politically, and so they tried to implement some new law that actually wouldn't have solved the underlying problem. They have the tools necessary. They just need to empower Border Patrol to tell people who want to come in illegally, you're not allowed to do that. They just need to use the authority that the border czar Kamala Harris has.
I want to ask you about the former president's comments yesterday to the National Association of Black Journalists, where he said that Vice President Harris is, quote, all of a sudden black. As a father of 3 biracial children, did those comments give you pause at all?
They don't give me pause at all. Look, all he said is that Kamala Harris is a chameleon. She goes to Georgia 2 days ago. She was raised in Canada. She puts on a fake Southern accent. She is everything to everybody, and she pretends to be somebody different depending on which audience she's in front of. I think it's totally reasonable for the president to call that out, and that's all he did. I mean, look, she's running as a tough on crime prosecutor, even though she implemented open border policies. She's saying that she wants to support the police, yet she wanted to defund the police just 3 years ago. It's totally reasonable to call out the fact that she pretends to be somebody different depending on the audience she's talking to.
You use that word.
There's this. I had posted something on my X, and if you're not following me on X, give me a follow. I had posted something on X, and it was just in relation to what JD had just stated. Let me share this with you. Oh man.
Word chameleon yesterday as well. You're someone who was an unabashed critic of the former president previously. Now you're his running mate. You're someone who has text messages out there now that say, "I hate the police." Now, yesterday you said, "I back the blue." By your own standard, are you a chameleon?
Look, I criticized Donald Trump 10 years ago, and we've talked about it, and I've made a good argument to the American people about why I think he was a great president and why I think he deserves re-election. That's different than going to Georgia 2 days ago and putting on a fake Southern accent when you were raised in Canada. So I think it's totally reasonable to change your mind. Has Kamala Harris stood for a tough debate with you and explained why she wanted to ban fracking and now she doesn't, or why she wanted to defund the police and now she doesn't, or why she wanted to open the border but now she doesn't? It's reasonable to change your mind. It's not reasonable to run and hide from the media and not answer the American people's questions.
True.
He was
True. I agree with that. And the other thing is also Kamala Harris was running against Joe Biden back in 2020. She was the other Democratic nominee back in 2020. And she actually had brought up the fact in regards of Joe Biden's busing policies in regards of segregation. And then a year later, not even a year later, she became Joe Biden's vice president, which is a very short time frame to change minds, right? You're against somebody, and then immediately you become vice president of their cabinet. 10 years ago, kind of what JD's mentioning here, it's a long time. And I agree with being able to change your mind. And you can change your mind however you want, however you feel fit, because we get new information all the time. So ultimately, we have the ability to change your mind. But he made a really good point here.
Also asked yesterday if you were ready to be president on day one. He kind of dodged the question. What do you still have to do as his running mate to prove to him that you are ready to step into that role?
Well, I think Donald Trump was answering a political question, and he was answering it correctly. He said for years that who the vice president is doesn't really matter politically. Most Americans are voting either for Kamala Harris or for Donald Trump. They're not voting for the vice presidential nominee of either party. Look, I'm absolutely ready to be president on day one. I've been a businessman. I've been a United States Marine. I've been a senator. I can do the job, but politically, he's just right. People are voting for Donald Trump primarily.
So why are you out here today then if you aren't necessary to this process?
Well, I didn't say I wasn't necessary to the process. I can certainly make an argument that Borders Kamala Harris has failed the American people.
They would never ask these questions to Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. They wouldn't press like this. I've seen it, and they won't press like this, but they've been pressing like this against Donald Trump and JD quite a bit.
But I think ultimately they're going to be voting either for Kamala Harris or for Donald Trump.
Do you have a reaction to the news that just came out about the prisoner swap that will bring 2 Americans back home potentially?
Look, I think it's great news, at least what little we know. We certainly want these Americans to come back home. It was ridiculous that they were in prison to begin with, but we have to ask ourselves, why are they coming home? And I think it's because bad guys all over the world recognize Donald Trump's about to be back in office, so they're cleaning house. That's a good thing, and I think it's a testament to Donald Trump's strength.
Yes.
You've explained at length your past criticism of the former president. I'm just curious though, is there still an issue where you feel like you are on a different level than him, that you feel like you are hoping to sway him on?
I'm interested to have him answer this question here.
If you were to become his vice president?
Look, my job as vice president will be to help implement the governing agenda, and if, God forbid, something happens, to step into the gap. But Donald Trump's very healthy. I think he's going to be a great president. He's going to be a great president for 4 years. But my job here is to help prosecute the case, let the American people know what Kamala Harris actually is, what she's actually done. And then when we get in the White House to actually help govern, that's what I'm going to focus on doing.
So there's not an issue where you two differ at all?
Look, certainly we're going to differ on issues from time to time, but my job is to provide counsel to the president in private and then try to help him govern and do everything we can to help him do that.
Your reaction to the defense that you just heard from Senator Vance.
He had some good points, man. He came in hot. This is the strongest that I've seen JD Vance since he's been announced as the vice president under Donald Trump. That was the strongest representation that I've seen JD Vance in the past. His representation during rallies and things like that weren't as strong of his past, and the criticism of his past, they weren't as strong. This one was a very strong one, and this, to be honest, swayed my thoughts on JD in a positive way. Let's jump into this CNN interview with Senator Cotton.
Tonight, former President Donald Trump is defending himself after suggesting that the Vice President Harris is using her racial identity as a political advantage in an interview before the National Association of Black Journalists earlier today.
I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she had.
They're going to continue to use that. But yeah, they're going to use it for positives and negatives here throughout the rest of this campaign. Excuse me.
Happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
In addition to that, questioning the race of his opponent, Trump also declined to say one way or another whether his vice presidential pick was ready to do the job on day one. I'm joined tonight by Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. And Senator, it's great to have you here. As I noted a second ago, you worked alongside Vice President Harris when she was in the Senate. Donald Trump is standing by his comments tonight. In your view, are those comments defensible, Senator?
Caitlin, of course. First off, it's refreshing to see a presidential candidate who's willing to go in front of the media, something that Donald Trump knew would be a tough interview. It turned out to be a hostile, adversarial interview, but he's been doing that for 9 years. Kamala Harris, meanwhile, has been hiding out for the 10 days that she's been a presidential nominee. Before then, she used to do interviews every 5 days or so, but now she hasn't faced any media at all. I guess she thinks she can hide out for 100 days until this election. More fundamentally, the issue isn't what race Kamala Harris identifies as. It's the fact that she identifies as a San Francisco liberal. She has a long record, not just as vice president, of being Joe Biden's border czar, standing by the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal, but running for president herself. She said she was going to take away your health insurance on the job, while she was going to give health insurance to illegal aliens, and that we'd have a lot more of them because she promised that she would decriminalize illegal immigration. She cast the deciding votes as vice president in the Senate for the trillions of dollars of spending that has unleashed inflation on families that make it harder for them to make ends meet. Kamala Harris is a dangerous San Francisco liberal, and that's what really matters to Americans.
Yeah, I didn't hear Donald Trump bring up any of her policy positions today or stances when he was on that stage. But your argument is that just because she hasn't done an interview since she became the top of the ticket, that it's okay to question what her race is?
Well, Caitlin, if you didn't hear Donald Trump talking about her positions and his record, then you didn't watch the interview. It went on for more than 30 minutes.
I did watch
the vast
interview,
majority
Senator.
of it was Donald Trump talking. The vast majority of it, Caitlin, was Donald Trump talking about his record, contrasting it to the Biden-Harris record of higher inflation and wide open borders and war and chaos around the world, and pointing out that she has said things like she wants to eliminate the immigration police, and that she believes that illegal immigration should be decriminalized, and she wants to confiscate private firearms. These are all indisputable things on her record, Caitlin. There's videotape of them. Have you shown that videotape in the last 10 days since she became the presidential nominee for the Democratic Party?
Senator,
when she promises to rip away health insurance?
We have talked about her past positions and the reversals of those, and we've delved into all of that because that's actually what voters care about. But when your party's nominee is on stage telling a panel of 3 Black women that the first Black woman to serve as vice president hasn't always identified as Black, how does that help your party win elections?
Well, Donald Trump said that what matters is that she identifies as a dangerous San Francisco liberal. It's not what race she identifies as, but what she identifies
focused on race in that comment,
what's going to make a
Senator.
difference. Caitlin, the interview was more than 30 minutes long. which is 30 minutes longer than Kamala Harris has had an interview with anyone since she became the presidential nominee. The vast majority of the interview was talking about Kamala Harris's dangerous record on our wide open border, on higher taxes, on taking away health insurance on the job and giving health insurance to illegal aliens. The vast majority of that interview was contrasting the Biden-Harris record and Harris's record from the first time she ran for president to the Trump-era record. That's a contrast that Donald Trump will win every day of the week.
I know you don't like her policies, and you talk about, you call her the San Francisco liberal. I saw you saying that with Jake Tapper the other day, but that was not Donald Trump's main point today when he was asked about your Republican colleagues on the Hill who refer to her as a DEI hire. He was asked if he believes that she's only on the ticket because she's a Black woman. And then he said that she doesn't always claim to be Black, which is not true. But does anything that she has or hasn't said about her heritage have anything to do with her qualifications?
What are you guys' thoughts on this so far? What are you guys' thoughts on everything that's kind of showing up on the political landscape? I'd love to know your comments. Smash the like button and then also drop your comments down below. It does help with the algorithm. I truly appreciate each and every single one of you. Nice plug. Let's continue.
To be in the Oval Office?
Well, no, Caitlin, that's not what President Trump said. He said he didn't even know what Rachel Scott meant by a DEI hire, and he had no idea why Joe Biden hired her. What really matters is whether the American people want to hire her, given her record. And I promise you, if you think things have been bad for the last 4 years under Joe Biden, the worst is yet to come if Kamala Harris is the president.
I just want to quote his words to you, Senator. He said, "I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?" You can defend those comments tonight?
And he also said either is fine, both is fine. He loves African Americans, he loves Indian Americans, he loves all Americans. The point is that we don't know where she stands politically because she spent her entire life as a dangerous San Francisco liberal. And now in the last 10 days, she's tried to flip-flop on every single position. Well, I should say she hasn't tried to flip-flop because she's sending out anonymous campaign aides to say that she no longer holds views that she held when she ran for president in her own right. When is she going to come on Caitlin Collins' show or Jake Tapper's show or go on 60 Minutes or have an unscripted press conference and answer to the American people where she stands on the issues that matter to them, on whether or not they can pay the bills on July 31st at the end of the month, whether or not they're going to be able to pay them next month, whether or not we're going to have another 10 million illegal aliens in our country under a Kamala Harris presidency.
We have had that conversation about her policy views, but how does her changing her views on her policy justify having the Republican nominee questioning her race? How does that increase or decrease your party's chances of winning in November?
Well, Caitlin, you haven't had that conversation with Kamala Harris because she's been hiding out.
I want to have this conversation with you,
just
Senator.
like Joe Biden hid out before her. And my point is, when are you and the rest of the media going to demand that Kamala Harris come out and answer questions in an unscripted format about where she stands for this country, as opposed to continuing to focus on what Donald Trump said today? 4 years ago, Joe Biden said, if you don't vote for him, you ain't Black. Could you imagine a more insulting comment? Joe Biden is presuming to judge the political views of 1/8 of our fellow citizens based on their skin color. Did you ever ask Kamala Harris to condemn his remarks?
There are
Did you ever ask him or ask her if that was racist?
This is a question. You're a Republican senator, so I want to ask you about the Republican.
Oh, he's talking over her.
Ask Kamala Harris. Caitlin, did you ask Kamala Harris why she's willing to serve as vice president for a man she essentially called racist and a segregationist? Have you or anyone else in the media asked Kamala Harris those questions, Caitlin?
Senator, trust me, I covered the Biden-Harris White House. We obviously have asked for her to come on, but my question is for you about this. Donald Trump's pick for VP once questioned whether he was America's Hitler. But Senator, before you go,
what do you guys think about that interview there? What do you guys think about that? Go ahead and drop your comments down below. We're going to drop into another, just this JD Vance's speech in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Let's jump into this one.
Now, maybe the worst and most dishonest thing
that Kamala Harris has done, and it is a long list, my friends, is that she helped cover up Joe Biden's declining mental capacity for years.
True.
It's actually sad. Putin, Xi, Kim Jong-un, all these dictators, they have been sitting in private rooms for 3.5 years, licking their chops because we have a president who can't actually do the job. Now, anyone who's too blind to see Biden's incompetence or too dishonest to admit it is not fit to serve as commander-in-chief. She lied to us. She lied to all of us, and it's unacceptable. And you know, they never give President Trump an easy path. Kamala Harris, the Democratic elites are trying to install her as their new nominee without her receiving a single vote for president.
That is 100% true. What do you guys think about
the
that?
media, our friends back there, they call it a coronation. I think there's another word. I call it a coup.
What do you guys think?
In America, we do not crown our leaders. We vote for them.
Yes.
Democrat or Republican, you got to give the voters a choice.
Back in 2020, she didn't get a lot of votes.
But if there's one thing we've learned about Kamala Harris, it's that she has a hard time winning votes because she's too extreme even for the Democrat Party. Remember, in the 2020 primary, Harris dropped out months before they even cast the first vote. She was so unpopular, she polled in the low single digits among Democrats the entire campaign. She wasn't even the top 3 in her home state of California, and that is pretty embarrassing, ladies and gentlemen. And the reason is because Democrats know that the American people would never elect a San Francisco liberal who's so far outside the mainstream. Now, we've got to give some credit to our Democrat friends because they were right in 2020. The American people are never going to elect a wacky, out-of-touch San Francisco liberal like Kamala Harris. Now, I saw the other day Kamala Harris questioned my loyalty to this country. That's the word she used, loyalty. And it's an interesting word, simplify, loyalty, because there is no greater sign of disloyalty to this country than what Kamala Harris has done at our southern border. And I'd like to ask the Vice President, what has she done to question my loyalty to this country? I served in the United States Marine Corps. I went to Iraq for this country. I built a business for this country. And my running mate took a bullet for this country.
That was a strong showing on the 27th with JD, and then so was today when he was at the border. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Drop your comments down below. Let me know what you think about this whole scenario. Drop your comments down below. Other than that, guys, I'll catch you on